are experts on Sakai. You've got those faculty members who are just really excited to start using Sakai, and oftentimes you will discover after they've called you about 2 weeks after they learned Sakai that they've just migrated their own course by themselves. Thank you very much, and they didn't need any help from you at all. Those are the best people to get involved in the Sakai migration, because they're the ones who are going to tell their friends how easy it was, and they're the ones who are going to tell their friends kind of how this is done. And so that takes the burden off the IT department a little bit and puts it onto the faculty members as well. So how do you start then? How do you start dealing with this whole migration thing? It should start with an assessment. And by assessment, I mean meeting. And by meeting, I mean get your faculty members in a room and talk about it. As part of that meeting or as part of the assessment, it's important to talk about what the faculty members are expecting. Here's an example of some expectations that came out of a recent migration assessment that we had. So we talked about how the faculty members are going to feel, what we think they might like, what they're not going to like, how we can prepare for that to set expectations with them so that there are fewer surprises, how we're going to approach the migration process, figuring out where IT stops and instructional designers and faculty have to start, how to identify the courses that need to be migrated. Again, so this is like a project. This is not just a thing that's going to happen with the push of a button. In addition to talking about expectations, it's also important to just draw a tool map. Take the expert on Sakai that you have at your school, or we can help with that too, because rSmart's got a bunch of experts here, but get an expert on Sakai to work with you on analyzing that content that you have in your legacy system, and just draw a basic tool map. So if there is a tool called Learning Modules in WebCT, it's important to look at how the content got into that tool and figure out the best tool in Sakai to match that content to. I hope that makes sense. And it would be really nice if we could say, all right, every school who uses WebCT learning modules is going to put those learning modules into lessons. We've tried that before with Blackboard, and it doesn't work with every school. And so that's why it's important to get your faculty members involved and have each school, each institution decide specifically how that content is going to move into Sakai from your legacy system. So you draw a tool map, and that's something that looks a little bit like this. So you've got a Blackboard tool, or whatever your legacy system tool is called. You've got your Sakai tool and some notes. And generally, as you go through your tool set in your legacy system, you'll start to identify things that are more important than others. So what you might say is, yes, we must have our tests and quizzes migrated, and we must have our assignments migrated. But you know what? Our wikis, we have the wiki tool, but we weren't using it that much anyway, and so we're just not even going to worry about that. We're going to make sure we tell our instructors that their wiki in their course, if and only if they're using it, is not going to be migrated. But we're just not going to do that. We're not. It's less important. And so identifying the tools that don't need to be moved, or the content within the tools that doesn't need to be moved, is key, as well as drawing this tool map. And then your next step is essentially figuring out how the content is going to be moved. Do we want some level of automation here? Do we want IT to do some of the work? How much work is IT prepared to do versus how much work are the instructors prepared to do? Or do we want to just figure out how the instructors should do it and have workshops and show instructors how they can actually move their content themselves and kind of let them choose how to do it? I think lastly, one of the more important things with regard to the faculty members, in addition to setting expectations about how this is going to work and what's going to happen and how they can be involved, is to teach them how to use Sakai. We will assume they already know somewhat how to use their legacy system, and show them how to do it So you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can bring them in and have workshops and have those early adopters who migrated their own courses and then called you and told you about it actually teach those classes. That way you have faculty teaching faculty. From an IT perspective, you can show the faculty members how to do the IT part of the migration, which is basically the movement of the content, and then have somebody else come in, maybe another instructor, and guide those faculty members on how to re-render the content or make it look as best as it possibly can. So if they are familiar with the target system before the migration takes place, it'll be a lot easier dealing with them after the migration has taken place, if that makes sense. So again, I think Mike alluded to this earlier, but I'll just speak again really briefly about how rSmart can help you with migration. We know a lot about Sakai, and we have done a lot of migration assessments. And so if you need help, we can come out and we can talk to you for a day, and you can tell us how your faculty members, and you should involve your faculty members, of course, but you can tell us how you want your content moved from your legacy system into Sakai. We'll actually do that for you for a couple of courses. So you have to give us some sample courses, and then we'll take those sample courses and we'll log into your system and we'll look at it, and based on your requirements, we will get that content into Sakai. When we do that, or as we're doing that, we'll document the workflow of what's involved, and we will attempt to automate as much of it as we possibly can. Again, there will always be, in any migration, some manual work to do after the technology part ends. So we'll write the report for you, and then at that point you can decide what you want to do, after that. You can decide who is going to do the work. You can take a look at the work involved. You can hire contractors. You can hire us. But that part of it is up to you. And so I think what I'm going to do now is stop talking at you, and let's go to Mike Zackerson and see if we have any questions from folks about migration or anything related to it. Mike?
It's Kara. There are some questions coming in now.
Great.
Let me start out with one from Tony. He asks, is the Blackboard import tool specific to the rSmart distribution of Sakai, or is it something usable by any Sakai shop? Is it free or purchasable?
It is open source. It was actually created by Zach Thomas of Aeroplane Software, and I don't know if it's actually included in the core Sakai code. It is included in the core rSmart CLE code, but if you have an implementation of Sakai and the import tool is not included, it is open source, so you'll be able to find it and download it and plug it in.
Great. The next question, this comes from Louise. How long did the example migration take that you showed us from Blackboard to Sakai?
Good question. That particular course took me, I'd say, probably close to 5 hours. The reason for that was because I was stopping to document every step of the process, but I think for a course that you download that's between 30 and 50 megabytes, if you know Sakai and have a set of instructions, you can probably expect to spend between 3 and 6 hours per course, I would say.
Great. Robin made a comment regarding the UNE and Rutgers tool earlier. She just mentioned that there are some limitations to that tool. So that was a comment that came in as you were discussing that.
Yes, and Robin is absolutely right, and there are limitations with all of these tools. And that is really because instructors, when they're building their courses, tend to do it in different ways. And so if you go to one school, right, and everyone has used the WebCT Learning Modules tool in the same way, and then you write some code to turn that into Sakai, that is going to be great, and it's going to work for that school. But if you go to another school, and that school is using the WebCT Learning Modules in a different way, then yes, you will experience some frustration and limitations. Good comment.
Okay, the next